I woke up to a silence that felt completely wrong. Not the peaceful kind that sometimes greets you before dawn, but a heavy, oppressive silence that pressed against my chest and made every hair on my body stand on end. My farm, my life's work, was empty. The air was still, and I noticed immediately that something was off. The chickens, my goats, even some of the cows, they were gone. Not a few strays, not one or two, I mean every animal. And there were no signs of struggle, no footprints, no broken fences, no drag marks, just empty pens, and the lingering smell of something metallic in the air. I stumbled through the darkness, flashlight trembling in my hand. My heart was hammering so loudly I could barely hear the faint whispering sound that seemed to float across the desert night. I froze, straining my ears. It wasn't wind. It wasn't the distant howl of a coyote. It was something else. Something that seemed almost alive, moving softly in the shadows. My stomach knotted with fear. I tried to convince myself it was a pack of coyotes, that this was just a predator's work, but I knew better. Whatever had done this wasn't natural. It wasn't normal. I had first heard of it months ago. The stories that older farmers whispered late at night. Chupacabra, they said, a creature that drained livestock of blood, moving silently, leaving no trace behind. I had laughed. Those were just stories, old wives' tales, legends to scare kids. But now, standing alone in the moonlit corral, seeing the empty pens and feeling the desert's unnerving quiet, I realized that the stories might have been warning us. I thought it was just one. I was wrong. There were more. Many more. I tried to steady my shaking hands and calm my racing heart, but nothing worked. I walked slowly through the corral, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, revealing the scattered feathers of chickens, the trampled dirt, and the faint, sticky traces of blood that had almost been wiped away. The desert felt alive in a way that I had never noticed before. Shadows moved strangely, and every rustle in the brush made me jump. My dogs refused to leave the porch. Even they seemed to sense that something unnatural was near. I realized then that my life had changed. This wasn't a simple predator attack. This wasn't a coyote or a stray dog. Something else had been here. Something I didn't understand. And the worst part was knowing it could come back. I had to find out what it was. I had to face it. I had no choice. I couldn't just stand there and hope it wouldn't return. I grabbed my flashlight and cautiously stepped toward the north corral. Every step felt heavy, each breath loud in the still night air. The ground was bare, nothing to suggest movement. No footprints, no broken scratches in the dirt, just the faintest shimmer, like the soil itself had been disturbed by claws far sharper than any coyote's. My heart raced. I knelt down, studying the marks, trying to make sense of them. Nothing familiar fit what I saw. I decided to patrol the perimeter, moving slowly, shining the flashlight across the empty pens. That's when I noticed it, the first real clue beyond the tracks. A patch of earth that looked scuffed in a way no ordinary animal could manage. I froze. The hairs on my neck stood up. The air smelled faintly of iron, the same scent that had filled the barn that morning. My mind raced. I knew it wasn't just a predator, not a wild dog, not a coyote pack. Something else had been here. Hours passed, and the silence was unbearable. Every creak of the barn, every rustle of the wind through the mesquite set my nerves on edge. Then I heard it, a low, guttural hiss from behind the corral. My blood ran cold. Slowly, almost painfully, I turned toward the sound, and there they were, eyes glowing red in the shadows. Two of them, crouched low, moving with unnatural agility, watching me. My flashlight shook in my hands. They tilted their heads, hissing softly, almost curiously. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to obey me. I stood frozen, heart hammering in my chest, every instinct screaming at me to get out of there. And then, as suddenly as they appeared, they were gone, just vanished into the darkness, leaving only the oppressive silence behind. By the next morning, more of my animals had disappeared. I could no longer dismiss what I was seeing. This wasn't just one strange predator. This was something else entirely, and the name that had seemed like a ridiculous myth months ago now burned in my mind. Chupacabra. The stories weren't just stories. They were warnings. I tried to track it myself, moving carefully through the desert, flashlight in hand, listening to every sound. Shadows darted between the cacti. Every rustle, every subtle movement made me freeze. I began to notice strange patterns in how the creatures moved, almost like they were communicating, almost as if they were planning. By the end of that night, I realized I was not dealing with a mindless animal. This was intelligent, calculating, patient, and I was standing directly in its path. That night, I decided I couldn't just wait. I needed to see it for myself. I grabbed my rifle, checked the chamber, and crept toward the north corral. The desert was pitch black, the moon a thin crescent barely lighting the ground. Every step felt impossibly loud. The wind whispered through the cacti, and each shadow seemed to stretch toward me like a living thing. I crouched behind a stack of hay near the fence line, flashlight in hand, trying to steady my breathing. Then I saw it. A movement in the shadows. My heart almost stopped. My flashlight beam hit it for a split second, and I froze. Red eyes burned in the darkness. Its skin was gray, leathery, stretched tightly over spindly limbs. Spines jutted from its back, twitching like antennae. Its muscles rippled unnaturally as it moved, silent and deliberate. It crouched low, tilting its head, studying me as though I were prey. My finger itched on the trigger, but I couldn't bring myself to fire. It hissed, a sound not quite animal, not quite human, something alien and guttural. I felt my blood run cold. For a long moment, it simply stared, unblinking, and then it disappeared. Just like that, dissolved into the night, leaving only silence behind. I stumbled backward, heart racing, lungs burning. I realized something terrifying. I had glimpsed one of them, yes, but that didn't mean it was alone. If this one existed, there could be more, many more, and the thought sent a chill down my spine that no desert wind could warm away. By morning, more of my animals were gone. I knew I couldn't face this alone. I reached out to friends, men I trusted, people who could handle a rifle and wouldn't dismiss my story. Most laughed at first, some shook their heads, but a few agreed to help. I wasn't ready to admit it, but I was terrified of what we were walking into. We made plans, shared stories of strange sightings, and tried to organize ourselves for the coming nights. I realized, though, that our courage was thin, fragile, and as we spoke, I could feel the desert watching, as if the creatures were already listening, already aware of us. The Chupacabras were real. I had seen one with my own eyes, and I knew, with a certainty that made my chest tighten, that whatever was out there, it wasn't done hunting. That night, I lay awake, listening to the desert, counting the shadows, and I realized the hunt had only just begun. I couldn't face this alone anymore. The creature, or whatever it was too fast, too clever, too dangerous. I reached out to a few friends from town, men I trusted, men who had grown up hunting in the desert. At first, most laughed. "Chupacabra? Come on, Charles," they said. But when I showed them the empty pens, the bloodless bodies, and the strange claw marks, their laughter died. A small handful agreed to help. We armed ourselves with rifles, flashlights, and makeshift traps, anything that might give us a chance against whatever was haunting my farm. I walked them through what I had seen, the movement patterns, the strange hisses in the night, the glowing red eyes. Every detail mattered. Our first night of hunting was a nightmare. We spread out across the desert, keeping lines of sight on the pens, the fields, and the surrounding hills. Hours dragged by, the tension almost unbearable. Every rustle of leaves, every distant animal call made us jump, and then we heard a scream, sharp, high-pitched, and terrifying. We bolted toward it, rifles raised, hearts hammering in our chests. But when we arrived, there was nothing. The echo of that scream bounced off the canyon walls, fading into silence. We searched, shouted, called for our friends, but no one answered. Only the desert remained. By the next morning, more of my animals had vanished. Not one, not two, several. And then it hit me. This wasn't a single creature. I had imagined that it might be alone, hunting quietly in the shadows. But what I was seeing now What I was confronting was something far bigger, a pack, or something even worse, a colony.
Fear clawed at us. My friends exchanged uneasy glances, whispering that maybe we should call it off, but I couldn't. Not now. Not after everything. I needed to know what we were up against, and the desert seemed to sense our resolve. Shadows moved where there shouldn't have been shadows, and a low hiss floated through the air, almost mocking us, almost daring us to continue. That night, I learned something crucial. The Chupacabras were patient. They observed. They tested. Every scream, every movement, every vanished animal was a warning, and yet we were determined. We had survived this long. Somehow we had to survive what was coming next. I knew in my heart that the danger wasn't just immediate. It wasn't just about the next night. Whatever was out there, it was smart, organized, and relentless, and I had no choice but to keep going, to keep hunting, to face the darkness that was slowly swallowing everything I loved. That night, everything changed. We thought we were hunting one creature. I had imagined a single monster lurking in the shadows, clever, dangerous, but alone. I was wrong. Terribly, horribly wrong. The first attack came silently. One of my friends, Miguel, had been checking the far fence line. I heard a scream, sharp, sudden, cutting through the night air like a knife. I ran toward it, heart hammering, but when I arrived, he was gone. Just gone. No footprints, no signs of struggle, nothing, only silence. My chest tightened and panic clawed at me. Then I saw them. Not one, not two, but a dozen moving like shadows across the desert, their spines bristling, red eyes glinting in the moonlight. They were organized, hunting with deadly precision, circling the pens and fields. My stomach twisted with horror. We weren't dealing with a lone Chupacabra. There was a colony. Screams echoed from every direction as my friends were picked off one by one. Shadows darted between the cacti. I shouted, called their names, but the desert swallowed my voice. The creatures were intelligent. They coordinated, communicated in low hisses and clicks that sent chills down my spine, and I realized with crushing dread that we had walked into a trap. There was no way to fight them head on, no way to protect everyone. I found myself crouched behind the barn, trembling, watching as the colony moved across the desert like a nightmare come to life. The glowing red eyes, the twitching spines, the unnatural speed and precision. They were relentless. Every rustle of movement made my heart leap into my throat. Every shadow could be the one to strike next. By dawn, the screams had faded. When I looked around, my friends were gone, my livestock decimated, and the farm felt like a graveyard. The magnitude of what I was facing became clear. These creatures were not solitary hunters. They were predators in numbers, and nothing I had prepared so far would be enough. I sat there for hours, chest heaving, mind racing, realizing that survival wasn't guaranteed. But somehow, I had survived. I had evaded them, hidden, moved silently through the shadows, and in that moment, a grim determination filled me. I would not allow myself to be a victim again. I would learn their ways, anticipate their movements, and wait. Patience was the only weapon I had left, and I knew they would be back, watching, waiting, calculating, and next time, I would be ready. After that night, nothing was the same. Sleep became impossible. Every rustle of wind, every distant scream, every shadow crossing the desert made my chest tighten and my hands shake. I realized that survival wasn't just about hiding. It was about understanding them, anticipating them, and preparing for their next strike. I began fortifying the farm. Barricades went up along the pens, doors were reinforced, and traps were placed strategically along the paths I had observed the creatures using. I checked every fence line multiple times a day, inspecting for disturbances, claw marks, anything that might indicate their movements. My nights were spent crouched in hidden corners, scanning the horizon with binoculars, counting shadows, and listening to every subtle sound. The desert was alive in a way I had never noticed before. I started noticing patterns. They hunted silently, moved with coordination, and communicated in low hisses and clicks that sent chills down my spine. Their red eyes glimmered in the moonlight as they moved, and I could swear they watched me, studied me, tested me. Every encounter I had with their presence left me more cautious, more aware. The paranoia was overwhelming. I jumped at every sudden sound. Every breeze across the fence, every small animal scuttling in the underbrush made me freeze in terror. Even my dogs, who once barked
barked without fear, now whimpered and stayed close. I realized I was alone in a war I hadn't fully understood yet, but I survived. Somehow, against all odds, I had survived. I had watched my friends vanish, seen the destruction they left behind, and yet I was still here. And I knew that if I was going to continue, I needed to adapt. I studied the desert, the terrain, the timings of their attacks, the way they move. I prepared myself mentally and physically, training for the night I would finally confront them. Every night, I reminded myself of what had happened. The screams, the glowing red eyes, the empty pens, the shadows that seemed to move with purpose. I couldn't allow myself to be caught off guard again. I made silent promises to the friends I had lost, to the livestock that had vanished, and to myself. I would survive, and I would be ready. The desert seemed quiet now, but I knew better. The silence was deceptive. They were out there, watching, waiting, calculating, and I would wait too. I knew it wasn't a matter of if they would return, but when. Every night, I scanned the desert, listening for the faintest rustle, every shadow making my chest tighten. The Chupacabras weren't just hunting animals anymore. They were testing me, probing, making sure I remembered their presence. And I remembered. Every scream, every stolen friend, every empty pen haunted me. I began to prepare in earnest. Rifles were checked and reloaded, traps were meticulously set along their known paths, and cameras were hidden in strategic locations. I moved silently through the farm, inspecting every corner, every fence, every shadow. I could feel the desert itself pressing down on me, but I knew I had to be ready. Then one night, I saw them, a dozen, or maybe more, gliding across the desert, spines bristling, red eyes glowing, moving with a predator's precision I could hardly comprehend. I stayed hidden, holding my breath, letting them pass close enough for me to study them. I saw the detail I had feared, their lean, monstrous forms, their unnatural agility, the way they communicated through clicks and hisses. I knew then that I couldn't remain passive any longer. I had survived once, but surviving wasn't enough. I had to fight, to take control of the night, to face them on my terms. I checked my rifles one last time, examined the traps, memorized the terrain. I whispered a vow to myself, a promise in the still night. They had taken so much, but I would not allow them to take anything more. The desert was quiet again, but the silence was tense, alive with potential movement. I could feel their eyes watching, calculating, waiting for the moment to strike, and I would wait too, patient and ready. I had learned from every scream, every vanished friend, every shadow that had moved in the dark. I knew the hunt would be dangerous. I knew I might not survive, but I also knew I couldn't back down. Every night they returned, they would find me ready, prepared, and unrelenting. The Chupacabras had underestimated me, and that mistake I vowed would be their undoing. I would survive, and I would hunt. Now I sit in the quiet of my farm, waiting. The nights stretch long, and every shadow reminds me of what's out there. The Chupacabras took my friends, my livestock, and my peace of mind, but I survived. Somehow, against all odds, I survived. I have learned to live with the fear, to anticipate their moves, to watch, listen, and prepare for their return. Every faint screech in the distance, every rustle of the desert wind reminds me that they are still out there, watching, waiting, patient, calculating, and I must be ready. I think about the friends I lost, the animals that vanished, and the terror that has become my nightly companion. Their absence haunts me in every corner of the farm, in every empty pen, in every shadow cast by the moonlight. Yet that same terror has forged me into something sharper, more alert, more ready than I was before. I am no longer merely surviving. I am preparing, learning, adapting, anticipating. If you ever find yourself alone in the desert, if you hear a scream in the night or glimpse glowing eyes in the dark, remember this story. Some creatures are not what you expect. Some are intelligent, patient, and relentless. Once you glimpse the shadows, you cannot unsee them, and you cannot ignore them. I have chosen to remain, to stay, to fight. I have learned their patterns, studied their movements, and waited for the right moment. And when they come again, they will find me ready, armed with knowledge, traps, and the will to survive. The desert is quiet now, but I know better. The silence is deceptive. They are watching. They are waiting. They are calculating. And I am watching back. I am waiting. I am ready. The Chupacabras have taken much from me, but they have underestimated one thing: my determination. They may return, as they always do, but next time I will be prepared. I will survive again. And when the moment comes, I will hunt them. The night is not safe. The desert is not empty, and the shadows are alive. I survived once, and I will survive again.